Before we begin, let me ask you this. Have you ever witnessed a moment so small, so ordinary yet so full of heart that it quietly changed the direction of someone's entire life? Today's story begins with something as simple as a cold morning, a worn-out stranger, and a little girl who refused to walk past someone hurting. What happened next? No one could have predicted. Settle in, take a breath, and listen closely because sometimes the moments we overlook are the ones that alter everything. Single dad tried to stop his daughter from hugging a stranger. Unaware she was a billionaire CEO, the first sound wasn't her mother's voice. It was the thin, metallic beep of the heart monitor, steady, stubborn, almost cruel in how it kept going while everything else inside Alexandra Hayes felt like it was breaking apart. A soft hiss followed the ventilator, forcing air into lungs too tired to breathe on their own. Nurses whispered near the doorway. A rolling cart squeaked somewhere down the ICU hallway. Fluorescent lights hummed above her like tired bees. Every sound pressed against Alexandra's skull as she stood frozen beside the hospital bed, hands buried in the pockets of her wool coat shoulders, trembling from a night without sleep. Her mother's breaths rattled under the oxygen mask. Shallow, fragile. Alexandra leaned closer, her voice a cracked whisper. "Mom, I'm here." She felt the warmth of her mother's fingers slip between her own. A weak squeeze, a final spark. Her mother's voice came out thin and papery, but the conviction was unmistakable. "Don't let work turn your heart to stone, Alex." A pause. A deeper struggle. "One day you'll see. Power won't save you. Kindness will." Then another sound, a long, flat tone. The kind of sound that empties a room. The kind that steals the world out from under you. The heart monitor held its scream. Somewhere behind her, a doctor called out instructions. Feet shuffled. A cart bumped the bed. But Alexandra heard none of it. Just that piercing, endless note. Her mother's hand grew still in hers. And something in Alexandra's chest simply buckled. The tone cut abruptly when someone pressed a button. Silence filled the room like a fog. She's gone. The thought didn't speak. It fell. Heavy as a brick, blunt as truth. By the time dawn crawled over Seattle, Alexandra stepped out of the hospital as if pushed by an invisible hand. The automatic doors whooshed open behind her, too cheerful for a morning like this. Outside, wind scraped along the sidewalk. Cars hummed past on wet pavement. The whole world moved with a rhythm she couldn't match. Her phone vibrated in her coat pocket for the 5th time. She didn't want to answer, but she did. "Alexandra, we have an emergency," the chairman's voice snapped through the line. "Quarterly numbers are disastrous. Investors are panicking. We need you in the boardroom by 9. If you're not here, we'll need to discuss alternatives." She swallowed. Her throat burned raw. "My mother passed away 3 hours ago." "I'm sorry for your loss," he said, but there was no pause, no breath, no respect. "Nevertheless, the company needs leadership. Victor says you missed several meetings already." As if on cue, another notification buzzed a message from CFO Victor Stone. "If you can't make it in, Alex, I'll take care of things." Something in that line felt like a hand sliding into her pocket and taking her name with it. Alexandra hung up before she said something she'd regret. She didn't call a car, she just walked. Her boots slapped against damp concrete with uneven rhythm. A bus rumbled by, cold air washing over her face. Her vision blurred from exhaustion, grief, and the weight of a world she didn't want to carry anymore. She didn't know where she was going until she saw the bus stop bench empty, metal, quiet. She sat down. The frame of her mother's photograph wrapped inside her bag pressed against her ribs like a heartbeat. And finally, she let go. Her sobs came in waves, soft at first, then louder, shaking her entire body. Breath snagged in her throat. People passed by, their footsteps quickening when they noticed her hunched form. No one stopped, no one asked, except a small pair of feet that slowed, then turned. A block away, Noah Carter tightened his grip on the tiny hand holding his. "Stay close, sweetheart." and remember what we talked about." His voice carried that warm gravel only a working man earned over years of early mornings. "No hugging strangers. Even if they look sad. Not everyone's safe." Grace, 6 years old and sunshine in a puffy jacket, skipped along beside him. Her laughter chimed against the echo of passing cars. "I know Daddy," she said, but her voice softened when she heard something else. Quiet, broken sobs drifting from the bus stop ahead. Noah tried to steer her past the bench quickly. He didn't want her heart pulled toward strangers' pain. He knew too well how deeply she felt things. But Grace stopped. Not stubbornly, instinctively. "Daddy." She tugged his sleeve. "She sounds like she hurts." Noah's chest tightened. "Sweetheart, we don't." But Grace had already slipped her hand free. Tiny footsteps pattered across the sidewalk. Tap, 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 heading straight toward the crying woman with the heavy shoulders and shaking breath. Grace Noah lunged forward, pulse jolting with fear. "Honey, wait." But Grace didn't wait. She walked right up to Alexandra, who hadn't even noticed her yet, lost inside grief's hollow echo. The little girl's voice was soft, but clear enough to cut through the air. "Miss, you look like my mommy did when she was about to cry." A short pause. "Can I give you a hug?" Alexandra's breath hitched, the kind of sound that makes time stutter. She lifted her face just enough to see the small figure before her warm breath, gentle tone hands open like an invitation to step back into the world. The dam inside her burst. A choked sob broke from her chest, raw and unfiltered. She covered her mouth with her hand, but the sound slipped through anyway. Grief, fear, exhaustion all pouring out at once. Grace slowly leaned in, wrapping her arms around Alexandra's waist with the kind of certainty only children possess, the belief that a simple hug can fix something huge. Alexandra clung back, fingers, trembling forehead resting on Grace's small shoulder. For the first time in months, she didn't feel alone. And then Grace Noah's voice thundered behind them, sharp with panic. His boots thudded fast across the pavement, breath rushing out in alarm. "Sweetheart, what are you, Grace?" His voice cracked. "What are you doing?" The sound cut the air like a blade. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Grace's little arms stayed wrapped around Alexandra's waist, her cheek pressed gently against fabric damp with tears. Alexandra couldn't steady her breathing. Each inhale sounded thin, broken, like something inside her had cracked so deeply she didn't know if it could ever fit back together again. Noah rushed forward, boots skidding slightly on the wet pavement. He crouched down, voice low but trembling with panic. "Sweetheart, you can't just—" He stopped when he finally saw Alexandra's face, her tear-streaked cheeks, her reddened eyes, the way she clutched the small child as if Grace were the first warm thing she'd touched in days. Noah's tone softened without him deciding it. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. She shouldn't bother you." Alexandra shook her head hard, trying and failing to wipe her face quickly. "She's not bothering me," she whispered. Her voice almost didn't make it out. I haven't been hugged since my mom went into the hospital. It's been months." Her breath wavered with the confession. Noah shifted awkwardly. He wasn't good at navigating strangers' grief, he barely knew how to manage his own. Grace pulled back just enough to look up at Alexandra with big, honest eyes. "Daddy says crying helps let the sad stuff out so the happy stuff can come back." Her voice was so matter-of-fact it felt like truth carved into stone. Alexandra's chest tightened. She cupped the back of Grace's head gently, the way you touch something pure when you haven't felt purity in a long time. "Your daddy sounds very wise," she murmured. From beside them, Noah rubbed the back of his neck. "Well, I don't know about wise. Mostly just trying to get us through each day." "Each day is enough," Alexandra said quietly, echoing something her mother once whispered during chemo. A beat of silence followed, soft, strangely warm, despite everything. Noah cleared his throat. "Look, we were just on our way to grab something warm to drink. Maybe you." He hesitated, not wanting to overstep. You want a coffee? Or anything?" Alexandra blinked, surprised by how foreign kindness felt on a morning like this. She straightened a little, smoothing her coat out of habit. "Yes," she said, though her voice still trembled. "Coffee would be good." "Great," Noah replied, relieved she didn't recoil. "There's a little place next to the farmer's market." He reached for Grace's hand, but the girl kept hold of Alexandra's fingers instead. Alexandra looked startled, but Grace only smiled as if this connection made perfect sense. "I'm Grace," she announced proudly. Alexandra replied, using the shortened name instinctively, the version that didn't carry CEO weight. "Just Alex." Noah gave a polite nod. "I'm Noah." Together they walked down the street, Noah on one side, Alexandra, and Grace on the other. The air was crisp, Seattle's usual blend of ocean salt and wet asphalt. As they neared the farmer's market, noise swelled around them, friendly chatter, a busker strumming soft chords, the shuffle of people sorting produce. Life breathed louder here. They entered a small coffee stand. Steam hissed. A grinder whirred. Someone laughed loudly nearby. The warmth coated Alexandra's cold, aching chest. Noah ordered a black coffee for himself, hot cocoa for Grace, and turned to Alexandra. "What would you like?" She hesitated, not because she didn't know, but because no one had asked her a simple human question in what felt like forever. "Latte," she whispered. "Extra foam." They walked out with warm cups, the heat seeping through their fingers. Grace sipped her cocoa loudly, humming with delight. As they passed a fruit stall, Grace tugged on Alexandra's sleeve. "Can you show me how to pick a good apple? Daddy always picks the mushy ones." "I do not," Noah protested under his breath, but Grace ignored him. For a moment, Alexandra's grief paused just long enough for something gentler to slip in. "My mom used to teach me," she said, kneeling beside Grace and lifting an apple. She pressed it lightly near the stem, tapped it near the base, and held it to her nose. "You check for firmness and a bright smell. A good apple smells alive." Grace copied her, sniffing dramatically. "This one smells like sunshine." Alexandra laughed quiet, surprised by the sound. Noah watched them from a step away, brow furrowed. "You know a lot about apples." "Farm life," Alexandra said quickly. "Before everything became complicated." He studied her for another beat, noticing how her sadness didn't erase her poise, her clarity, her almost effortless confidence. She looked nothing like someone who slept outside a hospital chair all night, nothing like someone lost on a bus stop bench. "What do you do for work?" he asked casually. Alexandra's shoulders stiffened. "Computers," she said vaguely. "A lot of staring at screens." Grace handed her a perfectly chosen apple. "For you, to make your heart feel less heavy." Alexandra took it carefully as if the fruit were fragile. "Thank you, sweetheart." They kept walking until they reached a resting area near a towering corporate building. A large LED screen suddenly flickered to life above them. A narrator's crisp voice boomed through hidden speakers, Orion Dynamics, a message from our CEO, Alexandra Hayes. Alexandra froze. Noah looked up first. On the massive screen, Alexandra appeared sleek hair, immaculate suit posture, straight as steel. Her voice came next. Confident, polished, sharp, the very opposite of the shattered woman standing beside him. Grace pointed, delighted. "Daddy?" "She looks like Miss Alex." Noah's breath stalled. He turned slowly, looked at Alexandra, real, trembling, vulnerable. Then back at the screen, powerful, commanding, untouchable. The two versions slammed together in his mind. And suddenly, everything made a terrible kind of sense. The exhaustion, the guarded answers, the weight behind her eyes, her mother's death, the pressure in her voice, the dread in her silence. He spoke barely above a whisper, but the words seemed to echo louder than the narrator's booming voice. "Wait. You're." The LED screen continued its corporate monologue behind them. but the world around the three of them went absolutely still. For a moment, Alexandra didn't breathe. The LED screen above them kept playing its glossy corporate message, her voice, her posture, her perfectly measured confidence flooding the plaza with polished authority. But down on the street, wrapped in a too-large coat, fingers trembling around a paper cup of cooling latte, she stood exposed. Noah stared at her as if the ground had shifted beneath him. And in many ways, it had. "You're—" he whispered again, unable to say the name out loud. Alexandra Hayes, Billionaire CEO. The woman whose face graced magazines' investor decks and late-night financial shows. The woman whose decisions moved markets. The woman who'd built Orion Dynamics into a titan. Alex swallowed hard. Her throat felt scraped raw. She didn't answer because she didn't have to. Her silence was confirmation. Grace blinked innocently up at both of them. "Daddy, she is the lady on the big TV." Noah exhaled slowly, almost a sigh, almost disbelief. He rubbed his jaw, processing far more than a simple surprise. Because the truth wasn't that Alexandra was a CEO. The truth was that the woman crying alone at a bus stop wasn't supposed to be one. "Why didn't you say anything?" he asked softly. Alexandra looked down at her shoes at the sidewalk still damp from morning drizzle. "Because I didn't want to be her today." The sentence slipped out fragile and painfully honest. Noah nodded, once not fully understanding yet, but understanding enough. "Come on," he murmured. "Let's sit for a minute." They moved to a quieter corner near some benches where the hum of traffic softened and the buzz of the farmer's market faded into a distant lull. A pigeon fluttered overhead. A bus rumbled by. A car horn sounded faintly across the street. Normal sounds, life sounds, but each vibration seemed to tug Alexandra back into her body. She clasped her hands around her latte, absorbing its fading warmth. Noah sat beside her. Grace climbed up, legs dangling, resting her head against Alexandra's arm as if she'd known her for years. For a long beat, they said nothing. Then Alexandra spoke, voice barely above a breath. "My mother died this morning." The words hit the air like stones dropping into deep water. Even Grace lifted her head. Noah's eyes softened. "Alex, I'm so sorry." "She fought for months," Alexandra whispered. "Cancer. It took everything from her, and I kept leaving the office to sit with her. I didn't care about meetings or deadlines or any of it." She gave a small, hollow laugh. "The board cared, though. They cared a lot." "When someone you love is sick," Noah said quietly, "everything else stops mattering." Alexandra's lips trembled. "They don't see it that way. They think I'm distracted, emotional, unstable." She looked at Grace as if searching for something pure to hold on to. "Victor, my CFO, he's been waiting for a moment like this. Waiting to take over." Noah frowned. "Victor, the guy who texted you earlier?" She inhaled sharply. "Yes, he didn't press, didn't judge. He just listened, and somehow that made her spill everything she'd held back for months. "I've missed meetings," she said, voice cracking slept in. "Hospital chairs. Rewrote financial statements at 3 a.m. Tried to keep up appearances, tried to be strong. But every time I stayed later at the hospital, the board pushed harder. And my mother, she kept telling me to slow down, to not let my heart harden." She closed her eyes. Her last words were about kindness. A tremor went through her. Her chest tightened. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Grace reached over, placing her tiny hand on Alexandra's sleeve. "You don't have to be strong all the time," she said softly. That single sentence nearly broke Alexandra again. Noah cleared his throat. "I know it's not the same," he began. "But when my wife passed, it felt like the world went quiet, like everyone else kept living at normal speed while I was stuck underwater." Alexandra lifted her head. His words cut straight to the truth she hadn't dared admit. "How did you—" "Keep going," she whispered. "Grace, he answered simply. And remembering she'd want something better for us than falling apart. Alexandra stared at the ground, heartbeat thudding slowly in her ears. I don't know if I can keep standing. Not today. Then sit, Noah said softly. Just sit. You're allowed to. Her body sagged forward, elbows on her knees. A long, shaky exhale left her. But life didn't pause, not even for grief. Her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. She didn't want to look. Not after the morning she'd had. But the vibration kept going. Then again. And again. Reluctantly, she pulled the phone out. Email notifications poured in urgent all caps. Emergency board meeting. Vote of no confidence today. 3 p.m. Mandatory attendance. CEO performance review. Immediate. Investor. Relations need answers. Her hands went numb around the device. Noah leaned slightly closer. Everything okay? She shook her head, breath catching. No. Not even close. Another buzz. Another email. Then another. It felt like an avalanche sliding down from the sky to crush her ribs. I'm about to lose everything my mother spent her life believing I could build. Her voice cracked mid-sentence. And part of me wonders if it's easier to just let it fall apart. Noah sat up straighter. Alex. But she went on as if the words had waited months to escape. I'm tired, Noah. So tired I can't separate grief from work anymore. I don't even know what hurts more, losing her, or losing myself. Her nails dug into her palm. What if I don't go? What if I just let them take it? Noah's brows knit. Grace leaned into Alexandra, sensing tension, even if she didn't understand the politics. Then Alexandra whispered more to herself than to anyone. Maybe the world would be quieter if I stopped fighting. Silence thudded between them, thick, heavy, suffocating. The city hummed faintly in the background, a distant siren, a cyclist's bell footsteps tapping the pavement. Life going on indifferent to her unraveling. Her phone buzzed again, and this time the words on the screen didn't feel like pressure, they felt like a countdown. 3 G-World p.m. Vote of no confidence. If absent, forfeiture is assumed. Her pulse hammered in her ears. Noah watched her carefully, gently, like someone approaching a wounded animal. Alex, he murmured, choosing each word like a lifeline. What do you want to do? But she couldn't answer. Because the truth weighed heavier than the title she carried. Heavier than her collapsing company. Heavier than grief. She didn't know what she wanted. Only that she was standing on the edge of something vast and terrifying. The silence after Alexandra's confession lingered like a cold shadow, heavy enough to feel in the lungs, quiet enough to hear every faint hum of life around them. A seagull called somewhere above the waterfront. A car door slammed across the street. The distant bell of a streetcar echoed faintly through the crisp Seattle air. Noah watched her carefully, still processing everything he'd learned in the last hour. But one thing had become painfully clear. This wasn't a CEO sitting beside him. This was a daughter who'd just buried her mother. A woman pushed past the brink of exhaustion. A human being hanging on by threads. He took a slow breath, his voice gentle. You shouldn't be alone today. Alexandra didn't look up. Her fingers fidgeted around the empty cup in her hands as if she were trying to ground herself in something solid. Alone is easier, she said softly. No expectations, no pressure to pretend. Grace, in her tiny earnestness, leaned against Alex's arm again. We don't make you pretend, she murmured. The words hit Alexandra harder than she expected. Her eyes stung. Noah hesitated, then made a decision that felt instinctual. Come with us, he said quietly. Just for a little while. My place is nothing fancy, but it's warm. And safe. And you look like you haven't sat in a real chair in days. Alexandra lifted her head, startled. Noah, I don't want to intrude. You're not, he said. You're someone who needs a place to breathe. Grace nodded emphatically. Come home with us, Daddy makes the best grilled cheese. It fixes everything." A shaky laugh escaped Alexandra, weak but real, and in that tiny crack of light the decision formed. "Okay," she whispered. "Just for a while." The drive was short. Noah's truck rattled a bit, the kind of sound that comes from years of honest work. Alexandra sat in the passenger seat, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles paled. Grace hummed behind them, tapping her boots against the seat rhythmically. The neighborhood Noah lived in was modest old homes, porches with wind chimes, the distant bark of a neighbor's dog. When Noah opened the door, a warm scent drifted out, the faint spice of old wood, the clean trace of laundry detergent, the subtle sweetness of crayons. Grace darted inside. "This way, Miss Alex." The living room was small but alive, toys on the rug, books stacked unevenly on the coffee table, a soft blanket thrown over the couch. A small radio played classic hits quietly in the background, warm, nostalgic, comforting. Nothing like the sterile, echoing space Alexandra returned to every night in her penthouse. She stepped inside slowly, as if afraid she might break the space with her grief. "You can sit wherever," Noah said, locking the door gently behind them. "Sorry for the mess. Single dad, hurricane zone." "It's perfect," Alexandra murmured. "Feels human." Grace ran to the wall, pointing to a framed drawing. "That's Mommy. I drew it from a picture. Daddy says it's the best thing I've ever made." Alexandra approached the drawing, her breath catching. The childlike lines, the bright colors, the love poured into every stroke. It hurt and healed at the same time. "She was beautiful," Alexandra whispered. "Still is," Noah said softly, almost reverently. "Just not here." Alexandra didn't push him. She understood the landmine of loss too well. After a few minutes, they settled around Noah's small kitchen table. Grace showed Alexandra her art album, pages filled with sunshine landscapes, stick figure families, rainbows, and memories only a child could paint honestly. Each page pulled a faint smile from Alexandra, her shoulders relaxing by degrees. But then the conversation shifted. Not forced, not rushed, just a natural drift from small moments to the heavier truths. Noah poured her a glass of water. "Tell me about the meeting they're calling." Alexandra sighed, rubbing her forehead. "It's not just a meeting. It's a vote. Victor's been pushing the board for months, waiting for me to slip. My mother's illness, grieving. It all gave him ammunition. And if you don't show up," Noah asked quietly, "I lose my seat, effective immediately." She swallowed. "And I think part of me was ready to let it go today." Noah leaned back, his expression unreadable at first, but then he spoke carefully. "Running never fixed anything for me. Not after my wife passed. Not after I lost work. Grief tells you to hide, but hiding doesn't stop the world from happening." Alexandra's eyes glistened. "I don't know how to face them like this." Grace, completely unaware of corporate wars but deeply attuned to human hearts, climbed into Alexandra's lap, holding a piece of colored paper. "You need this," she declared. Alexandra unfolded it. A crooked star, a stick figure woman with sad eyes, and giant purple letters, "You can do it, Miss Alex." Alexandra's breath hitched. "Grace, it's a contract," Grace said seriously. "You have to go. If you don't, I'm going to be so mad." Noah choked on a laugh. "She's very strict about contracts." Alexandra pressed the paper to her chest. Something inside her steadied. Not fully, but enough to stand. She inhaled. "There's just one problem. If I walk in through the main entrance, the press will be waiting. So will Victor. He'll block me before I reach the boardroom." Noah frowned. "There's no back way." "There is," she said slowly. "The HVAC maintenance entrance." Noah blinked. "You mean the technical access point?" She nodded. "Orion has a contract with a maintenance company. HVAC, ventilation, electrical. If someone like you walked in with equipment, and I walked beside you..." Realization flickered across Noah's face. "You want me to sneak you in as a repair tech?" "It's not illegal," she said quickly. Just unconventional. Noah looked down at his hands, rough, calloused, honest. Alex, I'm just a guy who fixes broken things. I'm not a strategist. I'm not any of that. Grace tugged his sleeve. But Daddy, you are a superhero. Noah closed his eyes for a long moment, and when he opened them, there was resolve. All right, he said quietly. I'll get you in. But you have to promise me something. Alexandra waited, breath tight. You walk into that boardroom, he said, and you fight like hell. No running. She nodded once. Firm, I promise. The moment held electric, steady, unspoken trust forming in the cracks of two broken lives. The service entrance of Orion Dynamics didn't look anything like the gleaming lobby the world associated with the company's billion-dollar image. Down here, everything echoed. Metal doors creaked. A ventilation fan hummed with a low, steady growl. Somewhere above them, an elevator dinged, faintly far removed from this underground artery where only workers came and went. Perfect, hidden, unnoticed. Noah's tool bag clanked at his side with each step, solid, honest, familiar. Alexandra walked half a step behind him, baseball cap pulled low, a plain gray mask covering most of her face. It felt absurd that the CEO of Orion Dynamics had to shrink herself into anonymity just to enter her own building. Absurd and humiliating. But necessary. Grace had insisted Alexandra keep the little paper contract in her pocket. You can do it. Miss Alex peeked from the edge of her coat every time she moved. It was the only thing steadying her breath right now. Stay close, Noah murmured without looking back. Cameras won't question me, but still, just keep your head down. The metal door groaned open as he swiped his contractor badge. The hallway beyond was chilly air, thick with the scent of sterilized machinery and industrial coolant. Alexandra felt a knot form in her stomach. This is what I've come to, she thought, sneaking into my own company like a criminal. Noah must have sensed her spiraling thoughts. His voice softened. We'll get you to that boardroom. One step at a time. His calm grounded her far more than he realized. On the 63rd floor, a very different door opened. Inside the executive security suite, CFO Victor Stone studied the live feed from various floors, his jaw sharp as glass eyes narrowed with suspicion. A junior security officer approached him, tablet in hand. Sir, movement in the technical corridor on B2. A maintenance worker and someone else entering the HVAC wing. Victor leaned forward. Someone else we can't see her face. Cap and mask. Victor's lips curled slightly, not a smile. Something colder. Zoom in. The grainy feed sharpened enough to show a tall man in navy work pants, and beside him a woman with unmistakably elegant posture even in plain clothing. Her hand briefly pushed hair behind her ear, an elegant, practiced motion. Victor's eyes darkened. Print that. Send it to IT. I want every camera angle between that hallway and the service elevators. The officer hesitated. Sir, is there a concern? Victor's voice dropped taut and dangerous. She wasn't supposed to be back today. Meanwhile, Noah and Alexandra rode the service elevator upward. The air felt tense, humming softly with mechanical vibration. Alexandra closed her eyes briefly, steadying her pulse to the rhythm. Noah cleared his throat. Just so we're clear, you walk into that boardroom alone, right? Yes. Alexandra nodded. But if anything goes wrong, he shook his head. Nothing's going wrong. You're getting in. That's the job. She looked at him. Really looked at him, this man who met her only hours ago, who had no reason to stand with her. Yet did anyway. Thank you, she whispered. Noah only nodded, eyes forward. The elevator chimed doors sliding open. Cold, recycled air washed over them. The corridor was nearly empty, just the distant hum of servers and the faint click of someone typing in a side office. Alexandra reached out and gently took back the small folded paper Grace had given Noah earlier. I'll need this, she said quietly. He managed a half-smile. "It's the most important document you'll carry in there." She slipped it into her coat hand, lingering over it like a small prayer. Then she stepped toward the hallway that led to the boardroom. Her steps echoed. Every breath burned a little. This is it, she thought. Fight or lose everything. The boardroom felt colder than usual, sleek glass-lined with the faint hum of city life muffled behind thick windows. Chairs scraped as board members adjusted themselves. Papers rustled. Someone tapped a pen impatiently. Alexandra entered quietly. Heads turned. Some expressions softened with surprise, others hardened with calculation, and one Victor showed a flicker of irritation she wasn't supposed to see. "You decided to join us," he said smoothly, masking his frustration. "We were just discussing your performance." Alexandra sat. "Then let's begin." But she never fully got the chance. Because 10 minutes into the meeting, after the probing questions, the veiled accusations, the overly rehearsed concern, Victor's phone buzzed. He glanced at the notification and his eyes lit with something wicked. With a reluctant sigh, he addressed the room. "I wasn't planning to bring this up," he lied, "but it appears we have another issue." He tapped his tablet. The screen on the wall flickered. A blurred image appeared. A service hallway. A maintenance worker. And Alexandra caught mid-gesture as she handed him a folded piece of paper. Gasps rippled through the room. Victor stepped forward, tone dripping with sympathy. "It seems our CEO has been engaged in questionable interactions with outside contractors, at a time when investor confidence is already fragile." Alexandra froze. "Victor, that is not what— Oh, I'm not accusing," he said with a faux innocent shrug, merely presenting what security found. One board member whispered, "A payoff." Another murmured, "Is that why she avoided the front entrance?" A third, unstable behavior. Emotional compromise. The narrative twisted like a blade. Alexandra's chest tightened. She tried to speak, but the room moved faster than her breath. "That footage is misleading," she finally said. "You don't know what I was." Victor lifted a hand, cutting her off. "Alexandra, this is about trust. And right now, the optics are disastrous." The word optics struck her harder than the accusation. She felt her mother's warning echo faintly, "Don't let work turn your heart to stone." Her hand brushed against the folded paper in her pocket, Grace's smudged handwriting like a distant heartbeat. But before she could defend herself, a board member slid a tablet across the table. "Have you seen the article?" he asked gravely. Alexandra picked it up. Her vision blurred as she read the headline, "Arian's CEO Meltdown, Emotional Instability and Inappropriate Relationship with Maintenance Staff." A grainy freeze frame of her and Noah was splashed beneath the title. Her pulse dropped, her stomach hollowed, the oxygen felt thin. She looked up, faces blurred her ears, ringing with humiliation and rage and disbelief. Outside, somewhere in the building, a printer hummed quietly. A door clicked shut. Life went on indifferent to her unraveling. Then her phone buzzed. Another link, another copy of the article. Shared, forwarded, trending. As she stared at the screen, a cold dread ran through her. Victor had orchestrated this, and he wasn't done. Across the table, he watched her with perfect calm. The boardroom emptied slowly, the gravity of scandal hanging in the air like thick fog. Each scrape of a chair, each muted shuffle of shoes, each hushed conversation slipping out the door left Alexandra feeling more and more exposed, like someone had peeled away every layer of armor she had left. Someone handed her a folder. Someone else avoided her gaze. Victor gave her a sympathetic nod so convincing it made her stomach tighten. And then she was alone. Alone with the echo of that headline. Alone with the grainy still frame of her and Noah twisted, weaponized, poisoned. Alone with the knowledge that the board now saw her as a liability. A faint hum from the building's ventilation system filled the silence. It was oddly cruel, steady, indifferent while her world wobbled. A soft knock broke the quiet. Alexandra, the PR director Megan, slipped inside, followed by the head legal counsel and the board chairman. Their voices were clipped professional, but the tension pulsed underneath every word. "We need to act quickly," Megan said. "The narrative is spreading. Investors are calling. The media wants statements." Legal counsel adjusted his glasses. "The safest move is to create distance." "Immediately." "Distance," Alexandra echoed. The word scraped down her throat. From what the chairman exhaled. From him. Her heart tightened. From Noah. "Yes," Megan said gently. "It's nothing personal. But to protect the company and your position, you need to sever any connection before the story grows." Legal counsel unfolded a paper. "This is a directive to suspend all contracts with the maintenance vendor he works for. It signals decisive action. Reassures the board." Alexandra stared at the page. The world went muffled. Just the paper crackling in her hands. Just her pulse thudding in her ears. Just a faint echo of Grace's little voice. "Hugs are magic, surfacing like a ghost." "I don't want to punish him," she whispered. "This isn't punishment," the chairman insisted. "It's containment." "It's optics," Megan admitted softly. "And right now, optics matter more than truth." There it was. The same word Victor used to stab her earlier. Optics. The word that had dragged her mother's warmth, her grief, her humanity under its heel. Her breathing turned shallow. Her fingers shook. Her eyes burned, but not from sorrow. From shame. "If we don't act now, legal counsel press the board may proceed with a removal vote tomorrow." The chairman tapped the table. "Alexandra, it's your job or his contract. You know what you have to do." Her throat closed. Her ribs tightened. She knew. This is how the world works, she told herself. This is survival. Her mother's last words whispered inside her memory, "Kindness will save you." But kindness had no seat at this table. She lowered her pen hands, trembling, and signed. The sound of the pen scratching across the paper rang sharp in the room like metal scraping bone. The final stroke of her signature landed hard. A decision made. A cost paid. A man's livelihood cut cleanly and silently in the name of saving her own. When she looked up, no one congratulated her. Because this wasn't victory. This was damage control. And the damage was hers. Across town, Noah stood beneath the harsh fluorescent lights of a commercial building's basement. His hands were deep inside an old HVAC unit wrench, twisting steadily as he coaxed life out of stubborn machinery. The familiar clinks and clicks steadied him, the simple, honest rhythm of work. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He wiped his hands on his pants leg and answered. "This is Carter." A woman's voice came through corporate practice. "Mr. Carter, we're calling to inform you that your employer's contract with Arian Dynamics has been terminated effective immediately." He blinked. "Terminated. Why, we can't discuss internal decisions. You'll receive formal notice shortly." "Wait." But the line clicked dead. No second explanation, no apology, no humanity. Just silence. Noah lowered the phone slowly. A sick heaviness settled in his gut. Another buzz. Then another. 2 more clients canceled, the ones who relied on his reputation with Arian. He felt the loss like physical blows. His breath trembled. He steadied himself on the HVAC unit, eyes closed, jaw tightening until it ached. "What the hell is happening?" he whispered to the empty room. He drove home in silence, every red light feeling longer than the one before. The truck rattled not from its age but from the weight across his shoulders. When he walked inside, Grace raced toward him. "Daddy." "Did Miss Alex call? Are we seeing her again?" Noah swallowed. His voice came out thin. "I don't know, sweetheart." He hung his coat, sat heavily on the couch. pulled forward the stack of bills he'd hoped he wouldn't need to face today. One by one, he added up numbers that didn't care about feelings. The quiet of the house pressed around him, only interrupted by Grace's crayon scratching gently as she drew another picture on the floor, humming softly to herself. He glanced at her small shoulders, her wide hope, and the shame deepened. I never should have let them get involved, he thought. I should have protected us from the start. But deep down, another truth gnawed at him. I trusted her. Meanwhile, in her penthouse, Alexandra sat in the dark. She hadn't turned on a single lamp. The city lights filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, cold, distant, fractured through her tears. The television chattered faintly in the background. A financial talk show. She didn't mean to turn it on, but maybe she was searching for something, some reassurance that she hadn't destroyed everything. Instead, she heard her own name. CEO Alexandra Hayes appears to be unraveling under pressure, a commentator said. This photo, circulating online, suggests emotional instability and possible inappropriate behavior with a lower-level contractor. Another voice chimed in. Well, she's been absent for months. Investors have been uneasy. This might be the breaking point. Her chest tightened painfully. She muted the TV, but the damage was done. She pressed a fist to her mouth to stifle a sound, not quite a sob, not quite a scream. Something in between. Something raw. She leaned her forehead against the cool glass window. What have I done? The words pulsed inside her like a heartbeat. The rain started outside, soft at first, then heavier, tapping the window like quiet accusations. Her reflection stared back at her, tired, hollow, unrecognizable. She whispered into the darkness, I hurt the only people who were good to me. The night didn't fall gently, it collapsed. Across Seattle, lights flickered on in apartment windows, rain tapped against rooftops, and distant sirens wove through the city's heartbeat. But inside two different homes, separated by miles and circumstance, the same heavy silence settled like a fog. A silence made of exhaustion, of regret, of choices that couldn't be undone. At Noah's house, the last lamp in the living room glowed a tired amber. The small space felt unusually still. No cartoons playing softly in the background, no scent of grilled cheese cooling on the counter, no sound except the occasional creak of the old floorboards. Noah sat on the couch, shoulders slumped forward, elbows on his knees. Bills lay scattered in front of him. Payment notices. 2 contracts canceled. A third postponed indefinitely. He stared at the numbers long enough to feel them carve pressure behind his eyes. He rubbed his thumb across the edge of a photo frame on the coffee table, his wife smiling in sunlight. Grace sitting on her lap, both laughing as if joy came easy back then. How did everything fall apart this fast? He whispered. His phone buzzed. He didn't look. He knew it wasn't Alex. She hadn't called. She hadn't explained. And maybe. That hurt more than losing the contracts. He breathed out through his nose, slow and shaky, before picking up the phone anyway. It was his younger brother Mason. Noah answered. Hey, how's my favorite nephew and my favorite grumpy handyman? Mason asked, voice too upbeat to be accidental. Noah swallowed. I've been better. Mason paused. Talk to me. Noah leaned back, head tilting toward the ceiling. I lost the Orion contract, and 2 more because of it. Damn, Mason murmured. That's Noah. I'm sorry, I'll figure it out. But even he heard the hollowness in his voice. What happened? Mason asked. Noah hesitated, weighing how much of this story belonged to him and how much belonged to a woman who'd clearly been drowning long before she met him. A misunderstanding, he finally said. A bad one, and someone I trusted wasn't really there for me. Mason sighed. Brother people disappoint us all the time, but not everyone does it on purpose. Noah stared at Grace coloring quietly on the floor, drawing a picture of a woman with long brown hair hugging a little girl. You didn't see her face when she left the market, Noah said quietly. You didn't see how broken she looked. Then don't assume she's the villain, Mason replied. Maybe she's fighting a war you don't understand." Before Noah could answer, Mason added softly, "And maybe you care about her more than you want to admit." Noah's chest tightened. He didn't deny it, because denying it felt dishonest, especially tonight. "Thanks," he murmured. "Always," Mason said. "And, hey, give Grace a hug for me." Noah ended the call, put the phone down, and turned to look at his daughter. She was still drawing, humming softly, lost in the gentle world she created every evening. "Hey, Bug," he said quietly. Grace looked up, her big eyes instantly brightening. "Daddy." He opened his arms. She climbed onto the couch without hesitation, curling against him like she had since she was little. For a few breaths he held her tightly, eyes closing as he tried to let the warmth of her small body anchor him. "Is Miss Alex coming back?" Grace whispered. Noah didn't answer for a long time. When he did, his voice was soft. "I don't know, sweetheart." Grace pressed her cheek to his chest. But even she felt the crack of sadness he tried to hide. Across the city, the penthouse was almost pitch black except for the dim glow of the skyline bleeding through the glass. Alexandra sat on the floor beside the window legs, pulled-in forehead resting against the cool pane. She hadn't changed out of her work clothes. She hadn't eaten. She hadn't moved much at all. Her mother's picture lay inches away, face turned toward the ceiling as if watching over her. The city hummed outside, traffic wind a horn somewhere far below. Inside, her breath sounded too loud. Her mind replayed every moment of the day. Victor's voice, the board's judgment, the headline burning itself into her memory. And, worst of all, Noah's eyes when he realized she was someone he could lose because of power she didn't even want. She drew her knees tighter. "I hurt them." The words repeated like a broken record. For a moment she thought she heard her mother's voice again, the memory soft, loving, worn around the edges. "Kindness will save you. If you let it." Alexandra's throat tightened. She had let fear make her cruel. She had let shame make her cowardly. And worst of all, she had let Victor maneuver her into hurting someone who had only shown her gentleness. A sharp chime broke the stillness. Her laptop, still on the coffee table, lit up with a new email. The subject line glowed through the dim room, anonymous tip. "You need to see this." Her pulse quickened. Not fear, not yet, but something sharper. She crawled toward the laptop and opened the email. No text, just a file. Cam footage. Original 063 Service Hall, MP4. Her fingers trembled as she clicked. The video loaded. The air conditioning hummed faintly in the background of the footage. Then there she was, disguised, tired, handing Noah the folded paper. But this time the audio played. Her voice soft. "Can you hold this? It's from Grace. A reminder not to fall apart. No exchange of money. No suspicious behavior. Just a moment of trust between two people trying to stay afloat." Her breath shattered in her chest. Another file appeared below. It logged timestamps proving the video had been edited, doctored, altered at Victor's request. A heat rose slowly in her throat. Not anger. Rage. Clear, focused, righteous rage. Her mother had always said there were two kinds of breaking points, one that destroyed you and one that reformed you. This one felt like rebirth. She closed the laptop, slowly wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, and whispered to the empty penthouse, "I'm done running." The rain outside tapped the window harder, almost insistently, as if urging her forward. Her phone buzzed with another email. More fallout, more noise. But she ignored it. Because tomorrow she would fight. Not to save her title. Not for optics. Not for power or pride. But because Noah and Grace had given her something rare, a moment of pure humanity. And she had broken it. Now she would fix it. The email notification blinked once more in the corner of her laptop screen, tiny but insistent like the spark of a turning tide. Alexandra didn't sleep. Not a second. Not a blink. The rain that had hammered the penthouse windows for hours finally eased into a soft mist, But the quiet didn't soothe her. If anything, the silence sharpened everything: her thoughts, her regrets, her resolve. The anonymous email sat open on her laptop, its attachments still glowing like a confession finally brought to light. The untouched footage, the unaltered audio, her own tired voice saying, "It's from Grace," a reminder not to fall apart, and the log files showing exactly when Victor had ordered the edits. She stared at the screen until her vision blurred, not from exhaustion, from the weight of truth forcing its way back into her spine. Finally, she straightened, closed the laptop, and whispered through a tight throat, "No more running." She stood. Her legs felt stiff but grounded. She grabbed her coat, her mother's photograph. And one more thing, Grace's little contract still folded carefully in her pocket. "You can do it, Miss Alex." A child's handwriting, a child's faith, a lifeline more powerful than any shareholder vote. Alexandra exhaled, steady and sure. "I'm going to fix this," she whispered, and she stepped out the door. Noah wasn't asleep either. He sat at his kitchen table in the half-dark, the overhead light turned off, the only glow coming from the old stove clock blinking 3:27 a.m. The room felt heavy, like the air itself didn't know how to move without dragging pain across his chest. Bills still lay scattered across the table. His phone lay face down, and Grace had fallen asleep on the couch, clutching a crayon in her small hand. Noah rested his head in his palms. He hadn't cried, not fully, not loudly, but there were moments that night when his throat closed so painfully he had to clench his jaw until it passed. He felt foolish, betrayed, used, and worst of all, he missed a woman he barely knew. He didn't understand why that part hurt the most. He stood to turn off the lamp when a soft knock echoed through the quiet house. 3 gentle taps. Not demanding, not frantic, but trembling, like the person outside wasn't sure they deserved to be heard. Noah froze. The knock came again. He walked to the door, cautiously barefoot on wood floors worn by years of living. His hand brushed the doorknob. He opened it. And there she was. Alexandra Hayes stood in the gray pre-dawn light, her hair damp with leftover mist, her coat clinging to her like a second skin. She looked exhausted, truly, painfully exhausted, but something else flickered in her eyes. Determination, humility, and a kind of fragile courage that made Noah's breath catch. "Noah," she said softly, "I'm sorry for the hour. I didn't know where else to go." He didn't speak. Couldn't. Not yet. Then he noticed her hands shaking. "I made a mistake," she whispered, voice cracking. "A terrible one." He swallowed, keeping his tone steady. "Alex, what are you doing here?" She drew a trembling breath and held out her phone. "I need you to see something." He hesitated, then took it. The file open on the screen was the original footage, the one that showed Alexandra handing him Grace's drawing. Not money, not anything inappropriate. The audio played softly in the quiet hallway. "Hold this for me. I'm afraid I'll tear it if I keep it." Noah looked up sharply. "There's more," she said, voice barely above a whisper. She opened the log files, next the edits, the timestamps, the digital fingerprints proving Victor had manipulated everything. Noah stared at the screen as the truth cracked open in front of him. His breath stilled, his jaw clenched, his heart stumbled. When he finally looked at her again, Alexandra's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I let fear control me," she said, "and shame, and pressure, and I made a decision that hurt you, hurt your company, hurt your daughter." Her voice broke. "You trusted me, and I threw that away because I was too scared to stand up." Noah's chest tightened, not in anger, in recognition, because grief had made him hide too. Alexandra stepped closer, not too close, giving him room to pull away if he needed. "You don't owe me forgiveness," she whispered. "I'm not here to fix what can't be fixed. I'm here to tell you that you were right. Running doesn't solve anything." She swallowed hard. "And tomorrow morning the board is voting on whether I stay at Orion. I'm going to fight Noah, Really fight, not for them, for me, for the people I've hurt, for what's still good in this company. Her next words came out like a plea she'd been holding back for hours. But I can't do it alone. Noah looked at her steadily, at the woman who had broken under pressure, at the woman who was trying, really trying to make amends. "You're asking me to help you," he murmured. She nodded, slowly, deliberately. "I'm asking you to stand with me," she said, "not as a tech worker sneaking me through a hallway, but as someone who reminded me that my heart still works, that I'm still human." Her voice softened. "I know I don't deserve it, but will you be there? Just be there, with me, tomorrow, when it matters." The house was silent except for the soft ticking of the wall clock. Noah glanced toward the living room where Grace slept, curled beneath a blanket. Then back to Alexandra, rain-damp, exhausted, honest in a way that left no room for manipulation. He felt something shift inside him, something long dormant, something simple and steady. He stepped aside, opening the door fully. "Come in," he said quietly. Alexandra exhaled a soft, shaky sound of relief as she stepped over the threshold. Noah closed the door gently behind her. Then she turned to him, voice barely more than a breath. "So, will you stand with me tomorrow?" Noah held her gaze. "Yes," he said. "I will." She blinked, overcome, but before she could speak, a sleepy voice drifted from the couch. "Miss Alex, you came back." Grace sat up, rubbing her eyes, then grinned. "I told you, hugs are magic." Morning came quietly with a pale kind of light, the kind that makes the world feel like it's holding its breath. Inside Noah's house, the small kitchen hummed faintly as he brewed coffee, the scent warm and grounding. Grace sat at the table, swinging her feet, munching on cereal, humming a tune. The normalcy of it all contrasted sharply with the storm waiting downtown. But for the first time in days, Alexandra didn't feel like she was drowning. She sat on the couch, half-dressed for battle, a tailored navy suit, but without the polished armor she usually wore. Her hair wasn't slicked back into a corporate knot, it fell naturally around her shoulders. She didn't hide the faint shadows under her eyes. She didn't cover the evidence of sleepless nights or heartbreak. She looked real, human, and stronger for it. She checked the time. We should leave soon. Noah stepped from the kitchen, smoothing down the front of a charcoal gray jacket that didn't quite fit the way business attire was meant to, but on him it carried an honesty money couldn't buy. He fumbled with the tie Grace insisted he wear. "Hold still," Daddy Grace said, hopping down and expertly straightening it like she'd done it 1,000 times. "You look perfect." Alexandra smiled softly at the scene, a small fragile warmth blooming in her chest. Her voice was gentle as she reached for her bag. "Thank you again," she said to Noah, "for being here. For everything." "We're not alone today," Noah replied simply, "and that makes it easier to walk in." Grace grabbed her backpack. "Can we go see your big office now?" Alexandra laughed softly. "Not the office, sweetheart, that part's chaos today. But I'll find a safe spot for you." Noah took her hand, and together they stepped out into the brisk morning air. Orion Dynamics towered above the Seattle skyline like a glass giant, sleek, imposing, exuding a kind of polished confidence that Alexandra no longer recognized as her own. As they approached the main entrance, noise swelled around them. Cameras clicked. Journalists shouted questions. 3 security guards moved quickly to hold back the crowd. "Ms. Hayes, did you bribe a contractor? Are you stepping down today? Is it true your CFO plans to take over? Is the company collapsing? Are the rumors about emotional instability?" Accurate, Alexandra didn't flinch. Not today. She held her head high, moving forward with quiet strength. Noah walked just behind her, steadying her presence in the storm, Grace clutching his hand with wide, curious eyes. The lobby doors slid open with a soft whoosh. the calm inside a sharp contrast to the chaos outside. A young receptionist gawked. "Ms. Hayes, we didn't expect it's all right," Alexandra said gently. "Just point me to the conference floor." The elevator ride felt long and silent. The faint thrum of cables, the soft beep of passing floors, Noah's steady breathing, Grace's little fingers tapping against her backpack, all of it felt like a countdown. When the doors opened, the air changed instantly. The boardroom floor was colder, still, tense. Alexandra placed a hand briefly on the glass railing, grounding herself before she walked into the lion's den. "You ready?" Noah asked quietly. She met his eyes, a small nod, and then she stepped inside. The boardroom was full, every seat taken, every gaze sharp. Papers rustled, laptops clicked, and an undercurrent of anticipation pulsed through the room like static. Victor stood near the front, impeccably dressed, composed, wearing a look of barely masked triumph. His voice was syrup-smooth as he opened the meeting. "Thank you all for assembling on short notice. Given recent developments, it's imperative we address Ms. Hayes's conduct." "You mean your conduct," Alexandra said calmly, interrupting him. A ripple went through the room. Victor blinked. "Excuse me." Alexandra walked to the center of the room, shoulders squared, voice steady. "Before we discuss the doctored headlines and misleading rumors circulating this morning, I'd like to present some clarity." She tapped the remote. The screen behind her lit up. Footage, the original footage. Her voice played through the speakers clear and unmistakable. "It's from Grace. A reminder not to fall apart. No money. No secret bribe. No inappropriate exchange. Just a tired woman holding on to kindness." Victor stiffened. "Where did you get sit down?" Alexandra said sharply. More ripples. The chairman leaned forward. She clicked again. A second file loaded the edit logs. "Here," she said, "we see the timestamp where my CFO ordered the footage altered. Here's the overwritten file. Here's the metadata. Here's the transfer trail. And," here she clicked once more, "is the security authorization he used to distribute the doctored version to media contacts before this meeting was even scheduled." Murmurs erupted. Several board members exchanged horrified looks. One whispered, "My God." Victor's mask cracked just slightly. "This is absurd," he snapped. "You think anyone will believe they will," Alexandra replied softly. "Because it's the truth, and because I no longer intend to protect a culture that thrives on manipulation." She turned to the board. "I've made mistakes. I've been grieving. I've been overwhelmed. But I did not bribe anyone. I did not act improperly, and I will not let my mother's last months be used as a weapon against me." Her voice grew stronger. "I am here today not to apologize for grief, but to demand accountability for deceit." The chairman cleared his throat. "I believe a vote regarding Mr. Stone is appropriate." Victor's eyes widened. "You can't." "We can," Alexandra said, standing firm. "And we should." The vote took minutes. Barely that. Victor Stone was suspended pending a full investigation. Security escorted him out. He didn't speak another word, but the hatred in his eyes was unmistakable. When the door clicked shut behind him, the tension in the room deflated like a punctured lung. Board members exhaled. Some looked relieved, others embarrassed. "And what of your position, Ms. Hayes?" one member asked quietly. Alexandra met every gaze with quiet fire. "I'll stay," she said, "but I won't lead Orion the way we have been. We're going to rebuild transparently, humanely, honestly. If that's not the direction this board wants—" She paused. "Then you may vote me out." The room fell silent. Then the chairman nodded. "No vote is necessary. You stay with our full support." For the first time in days, Alexandra's knees nearly gave out, not from weakness but from relief so sharp it almost hurt. When she stepped outside the boardroom, the hallway looked strangely brighter. And Noah was there, standing exactly where she'd left him, waiting, steady. She barely got 2 steps before her legs wobbled. Noah caught her gently. "It's done," he asked. She nodded, breath shaky. He didn't ask for details. He didn't need them. Then, from down the hall, Grace's voice echoed proudly. "See, I told you she could do it." 3 months passed quietly, steadily, like the slow exhale after a storm you weren't sure you'd survive. Orion dynamics didn't transform overnight. Buildings don't crumble and rebuild in a day. But something subtle, something human had begun to pulse through its glass and steel heart. It started with sound. Not the clipped heels of executives rushing through hallways, not the constant ping of urgent emails, not the sterile corporate hush, but laughter. Soft at first, awkward, then genuine warm, contagious and unfamiliar to the floors that once felt like marble mausoleums. On a mild Seattle morning, Alexandra stepped out of the elevator onto the 42nd floor, coffee in hand, hair loosely tied back, a laptop tucked under her arm. She no longer wore the rigid armor of a CEO trying to prove she belonged. Her suit was understated comfortable, the kind of clothing worn by someone who had nothing left to hide. "Morning, Miss Hayes," a receptionist called cheerfully. Alexandra's answering smile was real. "Morning, Hannah." She paused near the wellness center, her idea born from nights spent in hospital corridors and grief-soaked mornings. Inside, employees chatted quietly over herbal tea. A therapist led a small breathing session. A bulletin board displayed resources for mental health, childcare, bereavement support. Orion was becoming kinder. Not gentler in its ambitions, but more honest about the people behind them. And at the root of this new culture were 2 ghosts. Her mother, Noah's late wife. Between their stories, Alexandra had carved out a new vision, a company that refused to treat its people like cogs. She stepped into her office, smaller now by choice. The sprawling, penthouse-like corner suite had been traded for a modest, glass-walled room filled with soft light and less distance. On her desk sat a framed drawing, a woman with long brown hair holding hands with a little girl in a yellow dress. Grace's artwork titled in purple crayon, "Miss Alex and Me." She touched the frame gently. A soft knock at the door pulled her back. Noah stepped in holding 2 coffees, looking both slightly out of place and completely at home. He wore work boots and a simple button-down sleeves rolled to the elbows. "Brought the good stuff," he said. "The cafeteria brew still tastes like it's punishing me for my sins." Alexandra laughed, warm, surprised at herself. "I'll alert procurement." He handed her the cup and took a seat. His presence had become a quiet constant in her life. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady. He didn't work at Orion full-time. He didn't want to join the corporate world. Instead, he took a part-time consulting role, building the company's new family support initiative, lending his experience as a single dad to help shape policies that would outlast them both. But more than that, he was her anchor, her reminder of the world beyond boardrooms. Still, neither of them had crossed the line between friendship and something deeper, not out of fear, but out of respect, out of patience, out of a mutual understanding that some hearts needed time to learn how to be brave again. "How's Grace doing at school?" Alexandra asked, sipping her coffee. "She likes first grade," Noah said. "She hates broccoli. She thinks her art should be in a real museum." Alexandra smiled. "Honestly, I agree." Noah chuckled softly, then glanced at her. "How about you, big week coming up, right?" Her expression shifted. "Yes, the global expansion proposal. That's the one that's going to have you flying everywhere." She nodded. "Tokyo, London, Toronto. It's important. Could open new markets, create thousands of jobs. But it means being gone," he finished gently. She didn't answer at first. Her gaze drifted to Grace's drawing. After everything that happened, she said slowly, "I don't want to disappear again. Not from this company. Not from the people who matter." The words hung in the air, soft, charged. Noah held her gaze. His voice dropped to something low, careful. "You won't disappear. Not unless you're choosing to." A knock interrupted the vulnerable moment. Grace burst into the room wearing a visitor badge, a small backpack bouncing behind her. Miss Alexandra's face lit up. "There's my favorite ambassador." Grace climbed onto her lap without hesitation. "Daddy said you have a room where kids can draw while grown-ups do boring stuff." Alexandra laughed. "It's not boring. It's strategic alignment." Grace blinked at her. "Boring, grown-up stuff." Noah rubbed his forehead. "She's a ruthless critic." "Absolutely," Alexandra agreed. Grace opened her backpack and pulled out a drawing. "Can we put this on your wall too?" It was a picture of 3 stick figures, a tall woman, a tall man, and a smaller girl between them holding hands. Alexandra froze. Noah's breath caught. "That's you and Daddy and me," Grace announced. "It's our team picture." Something in Alexandra's chest tightened painfully and beautifully at once. "Of course we can put it on the wall," she whispered. Grace beamed, hopped down, and trotted toward the art corner. Noah watched her go, then turned back to Alexandra this time with an expression shadowed by something more complicated. He cleared his throat. "Alexandra," he began slowly, "there's something I've been thinking about." She lifted her eyes to his. Hope flickered, fear followed. She didn't know which would win. Then he hesitated, and the pause said everything. Fear. Fear won. He leaned back in his chair, withdrawing slightly. Maybe it's not the right time to say anything. The moment tightened like a fist between them. Alexandra forced a small smile, gentle but bruised. "It's okay. You don't have to." The air grew thick with unspoken words. Grace returned, bursting the tension like a soap bubble. "Miss Alex's daddy says we get donuts later." Alexandra laughed softly, grateful for the distraction, but a quiet ache settled beneath her ribs. Later that evening, as she tidied her office, her assistant handed her an itinerary for the International Expansion Project. "Your travel schedule," the assistant said. "They'll need your approval by tomorrow." Alexandra held the papers. Tokyo, London, Toronto. 3 months of flights, meetings, hotels, 3 months away. She felt the weight of it before she even made a decision. When she stepped out into the twilight hallway heading toward the elevator, she heard a soft voice tug at her sleeve. "Grace." "Miss Alex. If you go far away, who will eat donuts with me on Saturdays?" The question hit deeper than Grace could possibly know. Alexandra knelt so they were eye level. "I'm not sure yet, sweetheart." "Daddy gets sad when people go away," Grace whispered. "I do too." Alexandra's heart splintered quietly. Before she could answer, Noah turned the corner, noticing the heaviness in both their faces. "Everything okay?" he asked. Alexandra stood smoothing her coat. "Yes, I'm just thinking about some choices." Noah nodded, but something unspoken passed between them, a weight neither had named. And as they walked toward the exit together, Grace skipping ahead, Alexandra felt a question echo in her chest. "If love comes back into your life, will you be brave enough to reach for it?" The elevator chimed. Grace tugged Noah's sleeve hard enough to echo down the hallway. "Daddy," she asked, bright, innocent, sharp as truth, "do you love Miss Alex?" Noah froze. The next Saturday arrived with the soft hum of early morning birds calling from telephone wires, a breeze brushing over the sound, the distant creak of vendors setting up stalls at the farmer's market. It was the same market where everything had begun, where a stranger with heavy eyes had cried on a bus stop bench and a little girl with a fearless heart had offered her a hug. Now, months later, the world felt different. Softer, steadier, and somehow miraculously full again. Alexandra walked through the familiar rows of stalls holding a small bag of produce. Her steps were slow, thoughtful. She inhaled the scent of fresh apples and warm pastries, listened to the murmur of weekend chatter, allowed the sounds to wrap around her like a comforting quilt. but underneath the calm beat a quiet ache. In less than a week, she was scheduled to leave for Tokyo. After that, London, Toronto. A whirlwind of expansion meetings, pitches, and responsibility. Exactly the kind of opportunity she once would have seized without hesitation. But now she felt a tug, something inside her whispering, "Do not run so far that you lose what you finally found." She paused at the apple stand, the same one where she had shown Grace how to pick a good apple. The memory rose gently, the weight of the fruit in her palm, the scent of sweetness, the faint smile she'd carried for the first time in months. Alex. She turned. Noah and Grace stood a few feet away, framed by the soft morning light. Grace wore her yellow jacket, her hair tied in 2 uneven pigtails. Noah looked both nervous and relieved to see her, as if he had rehearsed several versions of this moment, but none of them felt quite right. Alexandra's heart fluttered. She managed a small, warm smile. "Hi." Grace ran to her first, wrapping her arms around Alexandra's waist. "You didn't go yet," she said proudly, as though she'd willed it herself. "No," Alexandra whispered, brushing a hand over Grace's hair. "Not yet." Noah stepped closer, hands in his pockets. His voice was gentle. "We thought we might see you here. This place," Alexandra said softly, glancing around. "It's become something like home." Grace immediately nodded. Because of donuts, Alexandra laughed a sound that felt like sun breaking through clouds. "Yes, sweetheart, because of donuts." Then the laughter faded into a quiet, tender silence. The kind where people who care about each other stand on the edge of something unspoken. Noah cleared his throat. "Can we walk?" She nodded. They strolled down the market's central aisle, Grace bouncing ahead of them, stopping at every booth to inspect flowers or candies or carved wooden trinkets. The breeze shifted. A guitarist strummed a slow, soothing melody nearby. The world felt gentle, ready. Finally, when Grace ran ahead to pet a vendor's friendly dog, Noah spoke. "About what she asked me last time," he said. "You know, in the hallway." Alexandra's breath caught. "Noah, you don't have to, I do," he said quietly. She stopped walking. He did too. People passed around them, but in that moment the world felt suspended, like everything else had stepped aside to let this one truth take shape. Noah exhaled slowly, eyes fixed on hers. "I was scared," he admitted. "Scared to say the wrong thing. Or say the right thing at the wrong time. Losing someone teaches you to measure every word, every step, like everything is breakable." Alexandra's throat tightened. "I understand." But he continued, taking a small step closer. "I don't want fear deciding my life anymore. Or yours. Or Grace's." He paused, searching her face as though memorizing it. "Alexandra, I care about you. In ways I didn't expect. In ways I didn't think my heart could open up to again." Her breath trembled not from doubt but from something tender blooming in her chest. She answered just as softly, "I care about you too." The honesty between them settled like warm light. "But I don't want to hold you back," Noah added. "You have a whole world waiting. A company that depends on you. You're built for big things. And I fix heaters and change filters." Alexandra lifted a hand, placing it gently on his arm. "No," she whispered. "You do more than that. You fixed something I didn't think could be repaired." Her voice wavered. "You gave me back my humanity." The weight of that truth steadied him, but something heavier still lingered between them. "But you're leaving," he said quietly. Maybe she replied. Maybe his brows lifted. She took a deep breath, eyes softening. I needed to know what I was choosing. Was it ambition, duty, survival? And I realized, I've spent so much of my life choosing what I thought the world expected from me. Her gaze flickered to where Grace knelt on the ground, tying a flower around the dog's collar. "But this," she whispered, This is the first time I've wanted something just for myself." Noah's heartbeat stumbled. "And what is that?" he asked. Alexandra reached into her bag and pulled out a small, simple box, but instead of handing it to him, she knelt down right there beside the apple stand, her motion slow, deliberate. Noah's breath caught sharply. People around them paused. Even the guitarist's melody seemed to drift into a gentler chord. Inside the box was a plain, silver ring. Nothing extravagant, nothing flashy. Just sincere. She didn't hold it toward him. She held it up for him to see. A symbol, not an obligation. "Noah," she said softly, voice trembling with emotion. "You taught your daughter how to pick good apples, but you also taught me how to choose trust again, how to choose meaning, how to choose people." Her eyes shimmered. "So I'm choosing you, if you'll choose me too." For a moment, Noah's knees simply gave in. He knelt down in front of her, breath unsteady. "Alex." "I thought my heart was out of room," he said, voice thick. "But it turns out it was just waiting for you." Grace squealed behind them. "I knew it. I knew it." Laughter rippled around the nearby stalls. Vendors smiled. Someone clapped. Because this wasn't just a proposal, it was a homecoming. Noah slid the ring onto Alexandra's finger, his hands shaking with tenderness. She leaned forward, forehead touching his eyes closed, breath mingling. Grace wrapped her arms around both of them in a tight, exuberant hug. "I told you," she giggled against their shoulders, "hugs are magic." And maybe she was right. Orion's culture shifted from fear to compassion. A new charitable fund named after Alexandra's mother and Noah's wife helped families facing medical hardship. Employees received real support, real flexibility, real humanity. Noah, Alexandra, and Grace moved into a modest home filled with laughter pancake mornings and donut Saturdays. They still visited the farmer's market every week, still picked apples together, still held hands like the world couldn't shake them anymore, because it couldn't. Not after everything they'd survived, not after everything they'd healed. A single hug had started it. One moment of kindness from a child who believed that softness was strength. And in the end, the narrator would say in a warm, closing breath, "Sometimes the thing that keeps us alive isn't power, but kindness, the kind we give and the kind we allow ourselves to receive. A love story reborn, a family remade, a heart restored. A second chance chosen, earned, and held gently forever." And that brings us to the end of today's story, a story about kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of choosing love even when the world feels heavy. If there's one message you take away from this journey, let it be this. Sometimes the smallest act of compassion, a hug, a gentle word, a simple moment of understanding, can change the direction of an entire life. Healing doesn't always come from grand gestures. Sometimes it begins with choosing to be soft in a world that keeps asking us to be hard. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed a moment of kindness that changed someone's path? Or lived through a chapter in your own life where compassion made all the difference? Share your stories in the comments. Your experience might be the encouragement someone else needs today. And before you go, tell me, where in the world are you listening from? I always love seeing how far these stories travel and how many hearts they reach. If you enjoyed this video and want more heartfelt healing stories like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and click the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. Thank you truly for spending your time with this story. Your presence, your comments, and your support mean more than you know. Until the next story, take care of yourself, be kind to one another, and I'll see you again soon.